I often fall into patterns of thinking and feeling really negatively, feeling unhappy and agitated, like something's not right. Just a real sense of discontent, almost like a despair kind of feeling. And these patterns happen quite regularly for me. And I've noticed them happen, yeah, they've happened a lot throughout my life. And it's just a miserable way to go about being, really. And for me, it's almost become a default setting. So it's something I've really got to work on. And it's something I've really been trying to learn. So I want to talk a bit about this today and how we can get out of these patterns of thinking and feeling unhappy, basically. As I've gotten older, I've become more and more conscious and aware of this way of feeling and thinking. When I'm in phases like this, I often feel incomplete or like a desire for something else to make me happy. I feel like I need some more success or more wealth or more respect or something else that'll make me happy. It always feels like I'm really incomplete and I need to get somewhere or go somewhere that'll make me happy. I don't know if this feels familiar to you, but this is how I normally feel. I feel like something's missing when I go through these phases of thinking. When I'm like this as well, I tend to have a bit of an existential crisis and kind of think, why are we all? Like, what are we doing on this planet? What's the purpose of life? And I need some kind of meaning to justify my existence, something to strive for and prove myself worthy of something. I think a lot of people feel this kind of despair and unhappiness too, and their whole lives are spent clamoring for something more that'll make them happy or achieve something that'll justify their happiness. And it's always this invisible, like, dangling carrot in front of them. Yeah. And I've been thinking about this a lot recently because I don't know if it's the way we're made or the kind of messages we've got throughout our life. I know, a lot of advertising and stuff, always, that's how they sell stuff. They sell happiness. Like, once you get this, once you buy this product, you'll be happy. And even how we're brought up, once you go to college, then you'll be a bit happier. Once you get your first job, then you'll have money and you'll finally be happy. And once you buy a house, then you'll be really happy. And kids, and then you need to retire and you can buy your boat and then you'll be happy. So there's always these these goals and things in life that are set there, and we think that we'll be happy once we do this and once we'll do that. And I think it's just all bullshit. I want to be happy without that. We're told that it's a lot of the time external things that'll make us happy, but happiness is with us all the time. And I'm at risk of sounding like really hippy-dippy and airy-fairy, but I truly believe we do have the power of happiness with us all the time, that we need to train ourselves to be happy, and that it's a gift that's with us all the time. That's why I want to talk about this today, because there's a few things that I've kind of come across over the years that really help me ground myself and make me feel happy and alive when I'm going through these phases that happen often, where I really do feel unhappy and have that sense of despair and agitation, like I've got to prove something. And yeah, it's all a lot of crap, to be honest. And even though I know these things that I'm about to tell you, a lot of them are things that I'm still really trying to learn and implement and keep in mind, because they really are the keys to being happy. And obviously there's some external things that will need to change in order for us to be happy, like we need a place to live and we need food to eat. But I really do think a lot of the time it comes from what goes on in our minds and with all our thinking. And I do think we need very little to be truly happy in this life. I know I'm lucky enough to have lived in South Africa when I was younger, and I would see people who lived in very poor villages and they just had like a tin roof over their head, they had some food, and they were some of the happiest people I've ever seen. And then later in my life, living in Australia, I've seen people who live in $5 million mansions. They've got the latest cars, they've got all the tech, they've got a view of the ocean, and they're some of the most unhappy, miserable people you'll ever meet. So I do think a lot of our happiness comes from the way we perceive the world and what goes on in our thinking. The meaning of life is just to be alive. It is so plain, so obvious, and so simple. And yet everybody rushes around in a panic, as if it were necessary to achieve something beyond themselves. This is one of my favorite quotes from the philosopher Alan Watts, and I really love it because it just it makes me go, because I think a lot of the time we rush around trying to achieve things and prove things to ourselves. We kind of miss the point that we're just here to be alive and to appreciate being alive, and that we don't need to prove some grand thing or do some grand thing or make as much money as we can. It's all about just being alive and appreciating being alive. We don't necessarily need to do anything special. Just being alive is enough. I don't know, but it really makes me kind of just think, you know what, it's amazing we even are alive, to be honest. I think a lot of us, we get so caught up in trying to find meaning and trying to prove things to ourselves and others that we don't often think about how lucky we are just to be breathing, and we forget about a lot of the little things that are going well in our life and that we do have. It kind of always comes back to this awareness and consciousness about living presently in the moment and just being grateful of things that we have. I know recently when I have been feeling this unhappiness and this kind of, there's almost like an invisible slave driver or someone in my head saying, Justin, you should be achieving more, you should be earning more money, you should have wealth, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. But this quote I like because it kind of cuts all those walls down, and it makes me kind of live in the moment and be aware of just the beauty of living, the beauty of being alive, the beauty of the simple things. And sometimes I think a lot of us, we're just not aware of how much is going positively in our lives and how much beauty and how many sources of happiness are just around us. I know I went for a walk recently and the sun was just hitting my face and like warming me, and just living in the moment and thinking like how lucky I am to be first walking. I've got my health, I can walk on my two legs. How lucky I am that I'm seeing the sun. It's beautiful. The rays of sun are hitting my face. I'm walking through the park and I can hear the birds chirping. I've just had a nice coffee from home. I've had some breakfast. I've had some food. I was actually walking to the beach. So I'm very lucky to live quite close to the ocean. So I became so grateful of being able to walk to the sea, get some exercise, have a nice swim in the ocean. And I quite easily could have gone out of the house and I could have thought the whole way there, okay, Justin, why aren't you in some corporate job earning $200,000 a year? Why haven't you bought a new car yet? Why aren't your clothes X, Y, and Z brand? Why aren't you married? Why don't you have kids? And this is my first point. It's so important to think about and be aware of all the amazing things, the amazing sources of happiness around us without letting that negative mind kind of take over that. And that's why this quote by Alan Watts is, "The meaning of life is just to be alive," really hits me because it kind of reminds me of just how lucky we are. What are the odds that we were actually even born and get to have the sensory experience of the world? I know now I'm getting really kind of preachy and I sound a bit woohoo, but honestly, the best things in life, the best realizations and the best sources of fulfillment are very simple. As soon as it gets too complex and too hard to achieve, it to me, I think it's bullshit. I think the simplest things in life are often the best and the most profound. And just really being appreciative of what we have. I know I was even thinking recently of these people in Africa, or even, people in Africa who they just have their houses made out of old corrugated steel. They cook on a fire, but a lot of them are the most happy people in the world because they're so grateful that they've got food at night, they've got friends and family around them, they've got some shelter to protect them, and especially those of us who live in these privileged countries, I think a lot of us are just unhappy because our mind and the way we think is always, what don't I have, not what I do have. So before I start rambling on too much, that's my first quote that I really wanted to share with you guys. And just being aware of this stuff just really does get you away from that negative thinking, because we all have the capability of being happy right now, right in this moment, no matter what your circumstances are. We can all be happy. Even if you are going through some real shit, there's still so many things that we can be happy and blessed about if we just give our consciousness, our awareness to those things, rather than getting tangled in all this negative thinking, all these desires and cravings and things we don't have. If we focus on the things we do have, we really can feel better. And that brings me to my next quote, actually. If what you have seems insufficient to you, then though you possess the world, you will yet be miserable. Wealth consists in not having great possessions, but in having few wants. I really love these quotes because they really help me snap out of those feelings of not having enough and always desiring and wanting more and never allowing myself to be happy, because it really is true that we don't really need a lot to be happy as humans. Obviously we need like some shelter and food, but a lot of us live our whole lives always thinking about the next thing and achieving a certain amount of success and buying this thing and buying that thing. We're never really told that you have enough right now to be incredibly happy. A lot of us fall into the pattern of always wanting more and always chasing meaning and never being allowed, giving themselves permission to be happy now. And I love these quotes because it is so true that if you don't appreciate what you have when you have very little, even when you have a lot, you still won't be able to be happy because you'll always still be chasing more. The goalposts always move, don't they? And if we change the way we think, we can be happy with very little, and then if we do get a lot more, we'll be able to appreciate it more. It's all about the way we think. It has very little to do with what we actually possess. Obviously, if you're out in the middle of nowhere and you have no food and shelter, that's a caveat to that. But I'm talking about a lot of people in first world countries or privileged countries where we have so much, but yet we're so goddamn miserable, a lot of us, because we never feel like we have enough. I know that when I'm in these feelings like I discussed, I always feel like I don't have enough and that I need to prove something to myself, that I need to gain something. God, I wish a lot of this was taught at school, because I wish I'd been taught a lot of this at school, because it would have saved me and a lot of people a hell of a lot of suffering and discontentment. I think a lot of people who are really greedy and who rork the system, and I feel like a lot of them need spirituality and just to appreciate what they have. Like all these billionaires now, who really just, it's fueled by greed. They always desire something and they're trying to get some kind of happiness. But even if you were in a room and it was completely concreted around, if you had books, if you had the ability to exercise your body, you could still be happy in that room. There's always something to be grateful and happy for. And I know it's quite cliche to say, oh, be grateful, but it's what I really learned And what I've gained to appreciate, that if we are grateful for the things that we do have in life and that's available to us, it is such a way to just snap out of feeling crappy. And I hope what I'm saying kind of resonates with you, and I don't sound like some crazy lunatic, but it's really helped me, to be honest. Another thing I really want to talk about is something I've really tried to implement for the last probably 8 years, and that's something we hear about a lot, but it's living in the present moment. So not letting our thoughts just wander into the future, worrying about, oh, what's going to happen? Will I be able to retire with enough money? Will I get sick? When will my parents die? The mind just creates so many scenarios that we can worry about, or worrying about the past and thinking about things we regret or things we should have done differently. So something I've really tried to teach myself and be aware of is just being as present in the moment as possible and as much as I can, because it's incredibly easy to let our minds just wander and think into the future or into the past. I know the other day I was having coffee with my mom or something, and my mind's drifting off thinking about worrying about my car breaking down, or worrying about something with work, or worrying if my video is not going to do well and it's a waste of time, or if it's a waste of time. I was having a beautiful coffee with my mom. It was in the garden, that it was such a nice sunny day. Bees were flying around, and we were chatting. And I completely missed the whole moment. And it's a moment in time which I'll never get back. And I was just thinking about an imaginary future and worrying about it, which isn't going to change anything. So I've just really tried, when I'm in these moods of unhappiness and overthinking, really tried to just ground myself and live presently without letting thoughts kind of go haywire. And this is something I think a lot of us struggle with. We live our lives kind of going through as zombies and miss out on really amazing things, beautiful things, just by getting caught up in our own heads. And I think just talking about it really helps. And just, it's all about, a lot of this video comes down to just being aware of things and being conscious of the way our brain works, because it's easy to just go on default mode and we kind of sleepwalk through life. So being conscious and aware of how our brain's working is extremely important. I also have really learned to not worry about things we can't control. So I've really tried to learn about letting things go if I can't control them. If I can control them, I'll do something about it. But if I can't control it, I've learned to kind of just let it go. If someone breaks up with you and they don't want to be with you anymore, let it go. It's not something you could control. If your car breaks down, you can get it repaired, but in the moment, you can't do anything about it. I think a lot of people get really stressed and upset and dwell on stuff that they just simply couldn't do anything about. Like recently I was gymming with my friend and he tore his pec muscle, and he's been unhappy for a week now about it. Honestly, we obviously we can still grieve and stuff, but he's let a lot of negative emotions and negative feelings kind of get into his head because he's just so pissed off about having torn his pec. But a great thing, is letting go of things we can't control. And I really hope that me waffling on today has helped you a bit, but just to let you know that you're not alone, and if you go through a lot of moments and you go through a lot of periods where you're feeling really unhappy and discontent and agitated, I really want you to just try and be aware of the things that are going right in your life. Be aware of how much beauty and how many sources of happiness are around there for you. I want you to live as much in the moment as you can. Just enjoy the moment. Don't let your brain wander too far into the future or stay too much in the past. A lot of our thinking is completely made up and bullshit, and it won't really help if we dwell in those future scenarios or past scenarios. So try and live as presently in the moment as possible. I want you to be grateful. And I want you to not worry about things you can't control. Just let the universe handle that. Only worry about things that are in your control. I hope you took something away from this video. And all the best, guys. You'll hear from me soon. And let me know in the comments if any of these things have helped you, or give me any ideas of videos you would like to see in the future. Alright, cheers, guys.